Bassel. So it is nighttime, around midnight, where you are. What about the protests? Are they continuing across Lebanon?
Yes, indeed, they are. Right now in Tripoli, for example, the clashes came back to the streets and the confrontation between the protesters and the Alayat Lebanese armed forces. But the violence compared to the past 3 days, it's not compared to the past 3 days. Until this moment, we can talk about blocking of the streets with fire and some stone throwing at the LAF personnel. Even in Saida, one of the major cities in South Lebanon, also there we had some clashes between the ISF, internal security forces, and some protesters who threw some cocktail, Molotov cocktail on one of the central bank branches in the city. And as you can see behind me, I'm now in Beirut. As you can see behind me, the riot police are taking extra measures in Beirut surrounding the main branch of the central bank.
And also, we understand that the coronavirus restrictions are just making things worse in Lebanon. How badly has the pandemic affected the country?
It is, in fact, indeed, it affected the country big time. First of all, the failing economy and the collapse of the Lebanese currency added to the pandemic. All these circumstances led to the, let's say, protest outbreak in Lebanese streets. Even this week, the government started to a slow raiding for the high restrictions, and this reason was mainly behind the protest in the streets. And some, in this case, let me mention one thing, that most of the crowds, they don't take the needed measures to protect themselves from the coronavirus. Some of them, I met them, they told me straightforward, they prefer to die from virus rather to die from hunger.
Okay, our correspondent Bassel Aridi there, joining us tonight from Beirut, where, as you can see behind him there, there's a tense situation there in front of the country's national bank. Bassel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now to Zimbabwe, where the pandemic is hitting farmers hard. Local markets and the European markets, where they export much of their produce, have been closed by the lockdowns. Now, this latest hardship comes as farmers were just starting to recover from the cyclone last year. DW News correspondent Privilege Mushanhira reports.
It has been a year since Cyclone Idai struck Alan and Claire Bailey's horticulture farm. Extensive damage was caused to infrastructure. Recovery had slowly started, but now the global coronavirus pandemic has knocked again.
We had at least 2 weeks where there were no sales at all out of our farm, and then since then the prices have been depressed, and demand has been low, and equally as hard hit has been our freight out of the country. There's been a lot of flights that have been cancelled, and frequencies into Zimbabwe have been cancelled.
The main crop, thistle flowers, for export to the European markets. In normal times, they export up to 2 million stems of flowers per season, but this year, they may not even achieve half of that. The worldwide coronavirus pandemic forced a wide closure of flower markets. Though Zimbabwe's number of coronavirus infections and fatalities are still low, it is the economic impact that citizens will have to deal with. The country is in a lockdown for 5 weeks with little economic activity. Sadly, the government is broke to come up with any stimulus packages. Also, small-scale horticulture and fruit farmers who are still recovering from the impact of Cyclone Idai in 2019 are hit hard now. Access to local markets has become very difficult due to the coronavirus lockdown.
These banana sales are a source of our livelihood. The whole family depends on the banana sales revenue. School fees comes from the bananas. Salt and even sugar all comes from banana sales. If we don't get a market, we'll die of hunger here.
Zimbabwe is facing its worst economic crisis in recent times. The country is blacklisted by international money-lending institutions and may not even benefit from any coronavirus bailouts. Farmers like Alan Bailey are only hoping for a slowdown or sudden end of COVID-19 for people to return to normal life again.
Yeah, from the fields to the skies, Airbus reporting a first quarter loss of nearly 500 million euros on Wednesday, citing a plunge in, no surprise, orders and deliveries. The European plane maker also warned that the crisis is still in its early stages. Airbus even refused to issue any long-term guidance for investors. Now, the CEO says that the company is bleeding cash. It has furloughed thousands of employees and taken out billions in loans. As football fans around the world wait for their teams to return to television screens, supporters of the German team Gladbach are trying to solve what they see as an even bigger problem. How do they remain part of the action when they're not allowed inside the stadium?
All is quiet in German football. The sounds of singing birds has replaced the screaming fans. The sight of empty stands likely to remain for many months yet.
It's very difficult to watch a game on TV instead of actually being there live in the stadium. On TV, you just don't get the emotions you can get by being in the stands with friends.
For the diehards of Borussia Mönchengladbach, football without fans is unthinkable. And so they're making cardboard cutouts of themselves to literally remain part of the scene. Using a mobile app, interested parties can take a photo of themselves, which is then printed on cardboard and taken to the stadium.
This whole cardboard mate campaign is more like a vigil, because football just doesn't work without fans.
Almost 10,000 orders have already been placed and demand continues to grow. The club are big fans of the initiative too, so much so the Gladbach players and coach have got themselves a place on the North Terrace. Even opposing fans are on board, a touching show of solidarity for the times.
It costs 19 euros. By buying it, 3 companies in Mönchengladbach will be supported. 2 euros will be donated to the Borussia Foundation and 2 euros to Borussians Help Borussians.
Mel hasn't missed a home game in almost 14 years. For now and the foreseeable future, she'll have a proxy presence as she and tens of thousands of fans wait to join the chorus once more.
Yeah, have to make it work some way. You're watching DW News. After a short break, I'll be back to take you through the day. Tonight, U.S. GDP shrinks. Are we headed for another great recession, or will it be the Corona Depression? I'll ask in about 2 minutes.